Rabbi Yonatan Udren, co-director of the RRG Beit Midrash at Hebrew University, son of temple members Eric and Barb Udren. How are you today?
I'm good, Rabbi Meyer, and thank you so much for the invite. Great to finally meet you, even though it's virtually. I hope we get the chance to do so soon.
Same. But you're living in Israel, so there's a little bit of some distance between us. Tell me more. Tell me where you are living.
Sure. So I live in a community called Beit El. Beit El is just about a half an hour north of Jerusalem. I've been in Israel now for, this summer will be 19 years that I've been here in Israel. So more or less after university. But we live in Beit El, and Beit El is a very unique and wonderful community. I hope when the next opportunity you come to Israel, you're certainly welcome to come and visit us here in Beit El. As I mentioned, it's about a half an hour north of Jerusalem. It's a community of about 1,000 families with about 6,500 people. So you can see that there are a lot of big families here in Beit El. We would classify everyone here, just to, these boxes have challenges, but just to give you a picture and categorize the people here, to give you a picture of it, we would classify the community here as a religious Jewish community. So you might think that it's somewhat homogenous because we're all Jews, we're all religious, but it's actually a very vibrant and very diverse place. We have a lot of different immigrants from all over the world who have found their place in Beit El. As far as US immigrants, we're only about 10% of the makeup of Beit El, but there are French immigrants, Russian, Ethiopian, a large group of Sephardim, Jews from different locations, Yemen, Iran, Morocco. And one of the very interesting communities that we have, several families right in our neighborhood here, are called Bnei Menashe. These are Jews from India, from Manipur, and they have en masse emigrated to Israel, and there's a large group of them here. They're amazing people. So walking around Beit El is a very interesting experience. You kind of feel like you're walking and seeing faces from all over the world. So that's one of the things that we love about Beit El, and what's unique about it. I think a second thing that's very important for myself and my wife, she's an educator as well. She teaches in a women's high school, is the educational focus here in our community. So we have one girls elementary, two boys elementary school, two boys and two girls high schools. We have what's called a yeshiva gavoa, which is a center of higher learning for post-high school young men. So the environment here is very, very focused on education. And that means a lot of the people who live in Beit El are also involved in education as well. So there's a certain kind of sensitivity and appreciation for education in our community. I think that's just a few things that make you unique.
Wonderful. Let's talk a little bit more about Israel more broadly, which made some really aggressive steps to stop the spread of COVID-19, from isolating residents to limiting how far you were able to go even from your home.
Right.
Seemed to have had remarkable success, and yet came at quite a cost. Could you tell us a little bit more about your experience?
Yeah, sure. The success that we've experienced here in a certain way seems a bit miraculous. It kind of reminds me of when I talk to students of mine at Hebrew University, which I know you mentioned you wanted to speak out as well, that they served in the Army. I did not get the chance to serve in the Army. It was the first time in my life someone told me I was too old for something. But these students have shared with me, they don't understand how the Israeli army is as successful as it is. There's something miraculous going on. And I do think that there is a large amount of support in the leadership as far as the way Netanyahu and the government has handled this. They shut down the country, they shut down tourism at a very early stage. And I think that did save lives on the ground. Maybe even more miraculous than that is the fact that 75% of Israelis actually agree that Netanyahu and the government did a good job. Anytime you get 3 out of 4 Jews to agree on anything, you're really looking at miraculous territory. So, I don't need to tell you that, but I think there's a sense here that that the government did a responsible job And for me, what's very important, a really sensitive job of dealing with the situation, because we are dealing with life and death here. And just from the perspective of the Jewish tradition or Jewish or Israeli ethics, from a broader perspective, you want the Jewish state to stand up and say, we care about life. We care about saving every life possible. And that was the message. And I think it was shared more or less with compassion. And all of these things were put into place. At first, it was 500 meters from your home. Then it was 100 meters. Basically, after Purim and leading to Passover, that month, things got stricter and stricter and stricter and kind of clamped down on us. And obviously, that has its challenges on a professional level. All of school got canceled, including Hebrew University, where I work. Our kids' schools were canceled. So, and my wife is a teacher. Everybody's in the house. So that has a certain challenge. When you can only go 100 meters, it's really even hard to exercise anywhere outside of your home. So definitely there are certain challenges that we underwent there. But again, I think that we sensed that this was something that would pass if we all were in it together. And even though there were some, and you see that there were some communities, more low-income communities, that had a hard time keeping with the stringencies and with the health laws that were put out. Overall, I think everybody did get on board, and I think we're seeing that now. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Everything is really bouncing back, returning back. I think the number of people who have died specifically from COVID-19 is around 200 and something. The people who are currently suffering from it, it's a number that's going down every day. The number of people who are contracting it new every day, I think today there was 0. I mean, so I think like everything here in Israel, I think it was Ben Gurion that said, if you can't believe in Israel unless you believe in miracles. So there's a little bit of mix of some very smart people in the government who took this, took the right attitude towards it, and a little bit of miracle like everything else here.
A follow-up question from one of your parents' friends who's joining us virtually. Here in the United States, we're seeing a splintering of opinion on political lines. You mentioned 75% of Israelis are giving a vote of confidence to how the government is treating this. Do you also, for those other 25, does it fall along political lines? Does it fall, you mentioned economic lines? What other factors may be at play?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure exactly how that 75% breaks down as far as who's outside, so to speak. Who are they talking to that's outside? There was some media around the Haredi communities, the ultra-Orthodox communities, who were resistant initially to some of this. And that in general is a community that has its challenges with the government. As Jews, we're complex people. We've had our challenges with non-Jewish governments, over the course of our history, of our long history. Thankfully, America is a wonderful place, but that hasn't always been the case. So I think in certain parts of the community here in Israel, there still is a really anti-governmental sense. So that's part of it. If you talk about low-income communities, you're talking also about some of the Arab communities. So I'm not sure if they're included in that 25% per se. I can tell you that from living even in a religious community here, that there was a great sensitivity towards these social distancing and laws that were all put into effect. As I said, most everyone that I know was on board with them, and because of the values and because of the desire to save lives. And you mentioned that we took a hit. I mean, economically. I didn't look up the numbers as far as unemployment, but so many people here are affected by the lack of tourism. We have very close friends who are involved in tourism, many of them, and their operations are completely shut down. So there are challenges that have gone along with that. But for the most part, we didn't see large, groups of people, whether from the left or the right, standing up and say, wait a second, we want to go back to work already, or no, we need to protect every life. In general, on this issue, there was a general buy-in, and I think it has to do with the following. I think Israelis as a whole, we're used to dealing with crisis. As I said, I've been here almost 20 years now, and we've gone through the Second Intifada, several wars with Gaza. I mean, thankfully, I wasn't in a place where many rockets were falling from those, either in the north or Lebanon and Syria, or in the south. We live kind of in the center of the country, so we haven't experienced that. But Israelis know when the siren goes off, you go into the bunker. That's just what you do, because we care about our lives. We're used to this. And I think Americans, are not necessarily used to crisis in the same way. And that's no fault of theirs. That's actually an incredible thing. Growing up in America, my first 23 years, it's a beautiful, wonderful, safe place, the places where I grew up, to live. And you don't get this sense of imminent danger. Everything that is dealing with those types of dangers and challenges is over there. You kind of see it on TV or hear it on the radio. But here it's different. I had to take my kids, maybe this was before, when we lived in Mali Dumim, when rockets were falling from Gaza, we were outside playing in a park and the rocket siren went off. And I had to take my kids and find a space where I could huddle over them and protect them while the rocket fire was going off. That does something to a national psyche. I think we're used to that in a way. So in that way, we're kind of built to come together in these times of difficulty. It does trouble me, not to speak in any way, along political lines, but it just troubles me to see in America that there is so much friction around this issue. Without saying that one is right and one is wrong, it does hurt me to see that there is so much friction going on between the sides. This would be a time you hope people would come together and realize that we have a common enemy. Let's work together to find a balance between these issues of economic and life, to find a way to do this in a responsible way.
And I hope that continues to emerge quickly. Let's talk about Hebrew U for a moment. You work at Hebrew University. You run the equivalent of a Hillel program and a Beit Midrash. Would you
Absolutely.
imagine that has all been turned upside down? I'm curious about the fall and when students might come back. I'm curious how you've been connecting with them in the virtual space. What are you up to right now?
Yeah, so it's a question very dear to my heart, Rabbi Aaron, and I'm sure for you, the challenge of being far from your constituency, the people that you care about, that you want to be there with, it is a challenge. The program that we run is actually through the Hillel at Hebrew University. So not everyone knows that there actually is Hillel Israel that operates in 8 different campuses across all the different universities in Israel. So one might ask, well, why would there be Hillel, an Israeli university? You have a huge Jewish constituency there. Yes, that's true. They run a lot of different programs, some similar, some different than the ones that you would find at an average Hillel, at an American university. Though, universities in America, what I've seen, you'll find a big, divergent programming at, let's say, the University of Pittsburgh versus something you'd find at American University or something along those lines. Different Hillels run different programs. So our program specifically focuses on engaging students with learning Torah, learning Jewish texts. This is really my entrance and my opening to a deeper appreciation of the Jewish tradition in my own life, through studying and through connecting to the text, the wisdom of these texts, the power, the universality, the eternality of these texts. There's just so much there. And I fell in love with it myself and had this burning passion, desire to share this with other young people. The uniqueness of our program and what my mind is the most important part of the program is that we get students from all different denominations, backgrounds, Orthodox, Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, non-affiliated. This is a space that is open to everyone, and we really welcome everyone, and we love to see a diverse group of students all sitting and learning and cherishing these texts, which are an inheritance to all of us, despite our affiliation or kind of the way that we grew up as a Jew or how we envision Judaism for ourselves. And we also have a lovely group of non-Jews who come in and learn with us as well, which really enriches the conversations that we have. It's a very open, pluralistic space. And again, to see that diversity of young people, sitting together, learning together. One of my favorite evenings at the Beit Midrash was a table of a Reform young woman who is now going on to Reform rabbinical school. And we have a lot of pride that that we were part of her journey. Reform, conservative, Orthodox, and non-affiliated students, guys and girls, sitting together, exploring and tearing apart a text together and arguing over it and sharing their perspectives on it. And that just is fantastic. So, Rabbi Aaron, we would love to share that with you and any of your listeners, any of your students, and any of the people in your community there. We've had the chance to share with my parents, and we've enjoyed doing that. So this is really my life's work and my effort and my energy to share the beauty of Torah learning of the Jewish tradition with these young people of all different backgrounds.
It's amazing. And perhaps if the timing works out and you are so gracious, I would love the opportunity to run this one back, to get to do it again and get to play with
absolutely
in a way that others could join with us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, for sure.
One more question I have for you. We were talking a little bit about this before we jumped on to this live stream. Silver linings in all of this, as we think about what new normal is going to emerge. We had the opportunity to have an Israeli comedian with us who shared one of the silver linings for Israelis is you now know what shawarma is supposed to taste like. Now that they're all forced to wear gloves, you actually taste the food rather than the person who is making it, as they're making the rounds. But I'm curious what other...
It might not taste as good, I'm not sure,
I'm curious what other silver linings you are seeing or you're hoping for as we begin to emerge from this challenging time.
Absolutely. So I think there are, and I like the phrase that you used, the new normal, because from my perspective, we ain't going back, and that's good. There were some things that were beforehand that we shouldn't be going back to, and we're all sitting in our homes with an opportunity to reflect and to rethink some of those essential core values. One of the things that comes up that people are talking a lot about is, who are our essential workers? That's a powerful question. For those who are essential, probably gives them a sense of worth. Those who are deemed unessential, what does that say about them? Who's deciding who is and who is not essential? But on a personal, individual level, I think there's an opening to understand, for myself, what's really essential. Who am I, and what am I working towards in my own life? And being inside my home, inside my space, I think there are some openings to ponder, to meditate on those questions. What is most essential? On a broader perspective, I spoke about this just a little bit, about some of the challenge we have with some of the conflict between the certain groups and certain religious groups and the government. There, as much as there were tensions that were felt in the communities here, there was a tremendous amount of mending in the relationships, specifically between soldiers and ultra-Orthodox. That's something that's fantastic. These areas were amongst the hardest hit, not just because of they were following the rules, they weren't following the rules. These are communities like New York that live on top of each other and have large families. So the spread there just happened very, very quickly. Well, the soldiers, certain groups of soldiers, were sent in to help, to care for, to offer food, to really support that community during these times. And from what I understand and what I've heard, there's been a tremendous amount of achdut, of brotherhood and connectivity that has come from this. So I think, you don't see that on the media as much. It likes to play up on the negativity, but there is a growth and a connection between disparate parts of the Jewish people and Israelis. I think that's a tremendous thing. And I hope that that's something that will become the new normal. And one last point about family, on an individual level, all of us in our home together all the time. Obviously, we have 5 amazing children, and they're even more amazing when they're sleeping. Then they're really, really amazing. But you know what? We kind of made a space to work through it. After 2 months inside together, yeah, of course it had its challenges. Of course, making those boundaries and making that space a space for everyone had its challenges. I won't say that it didn't, but it did allow us to come together and work out family dynamics in ways that I don't think we have. And so I think there is a sense of closeness and connectivity that we've experienced, and that we come out of this differently than we went into it. And one of the expressions of that I was sharing with you before is the Zoom bat mitzvah that we did. So our oldest daughter, Zahava, who turned 12 about maybe a month or so ago. We had a beautiful bat mitzvah planned. My parents were planning to come. My in-laws, who are also Pittsburghers, they live in Squirrel Hill, were planning to come. And of course, that all got canceled. My daughter, really with her head held high, took it well. And we said, let's do something that we wouldn't have done otherwise. Let's do a Zoom bat mitzvah. And I'm sure people in your community are doing this as well. But it was very meaningful because the overwhelming majority of the people who were able to join via Zoom would not have been able to come to the bat mitzvah itself here in Israel. So that allowed for them to share a little bit, to give our daughters a blessing, for them to hear her bat mitzvah drasha, her bat mitzvah speech, for her to share the PowerPoint presentation that she put together. And it was hard for me a little bit to experience because I was running the technical side of it, as I'm sure you know as well, running all the technical side of the Zoom. But watching it afterwards and hearing people's response to it afterwards, several people said to us, this was the most moving event that we've experienced since the lockdown. Thank you so much for doing that. And again, that was an opening that was provided from all this that wouldn't have been there before. So my wife already said, no matter what the situation, hopefully we won't be on lockdown, but when our second daughter, who's now 10, has her bat mitzvah, probably a lot of relatives won't be able to come, hopefully yes, but some who won't. Let's do a Zoom bat mitzvah then as well, and allow that family to be able to connect all together. So utilizing technology in this way has been fantastic. Definitely a silver lining.
It is beautiful, and it allows connections that might not have happened otherwise. And we're learning that technology is going to be a part of moving forward. God willing, a hybrid model will be together and using.
Absolutely. I'm sure for you as a community leader, that sense, and we touched on this, that sense of not sitting with those people who you are there to be with, to counsel, to teach, to learn with. It's one of the hardest parts for me as a people person to kind of move past, but we are seeing tremendous openings here. We are seeing everything to start to snap back. We're hoping that there won't be a second wave, that the kind of miraculous turnaround will continue. And I'm very much hoping, obviously for your sake and for my family's sake, but really for everyone in your community and everyone who's listening, that this does snap back as quickly as possible, that we are able to come back, not to the normal, like you said, but the new normal, to have a hybrid of finding ways to bring together what we've gained from this and, who we are in our essential way, and to really go forward and to blaze new paths.
Absolutely. Rabbi Yonatan Udren, I'm so grateful for your time. I look forward to that opportunity to get to study Torah together coming up soon. Let's make that happen if you are so willing. And I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.